Have it on.
It's okay, we got a quorum.
How are you?
You too? I would like to announce that a quorum is present. It is 6:01, December 10th. I'd like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting has been duly called, and notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act. We will now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071, 072, 074, and 082. And the time, once again, is 6:02. Thank you all very much.
Test, test. How about this? I talk straight, though? With the tie instead of the lapel?
Do you have speaker cards? Yeah. How many are there? Out of that, 23. And is HOA, Farmland HOA? Todd Smith? No. Spady Mose? Gail something? Maybe. And Christy Raw or Russ or maybe. Really long name? Really? Maybe. I just kind of glanced at them. Okay. I wasn't looking for anything. Okay. They're with the Wellington, so they said they were here to speak. I just didn't know. Did you put Todd Smith at the bottom? I don't know. I didn't put anybody over there.
Ready? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 10th board meeting for the LISD Board of Trustees. The time is 7 o'clock. We will now reconvene into open session. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, we have a healthy crowd tonight. I think there's some seats over there. Okay, we'll do this the old-fashioned. If you have an empty seat next to you, can you please raise your hand? So if you want to come over and sit over here, there's some extra seats over here. There's 3 in the front row. No? Just like church, huh? Okay. First order of business. We need to consider items discussed in closed session. I need a motion.
Madam President, I move that all personnel recommendations be approved as presented by administration.
I have a motion, Ms. Foudy. Second, Ms. Latham. Any discussions? All in favor? That is unanimous. I need another motion, please. Ms. Duke?
I make a motion for purchase of acreage on Josie Lane.
Motion, Ms. Duke. I need a second, Ms. Foudy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to awards, recognitions, and presentations. The State Master Naturalist Exemplary Project of the Year. Is Ms. Wilson here? Is she the one presenting it? Oh, there she is.
Good evening. This award is for the State Master Naturalist Award. They received Exemplary Project of the Year at the state conference, and it's with Heritage Elementary. So I'd like to have Toby Maxim come up, please. And we also have representative from the Heritage PTA, if they'll also come up as well. Penny. And our Elm Fork chapter of the Texas Master Naturalist. I think there's a couple of you guys. If you would mind coming up so we could present you with your award as well. So we also have several staff members that are here from Heritage Elementary, and you guys are all here sporting your pride. I can see that. If you guys would come up on stage, we'd like to get you in a photo as well. And also a part of this, I think the Elm Fork chapter has a special presentation they'd like to give Heritage Elementary. And so if you guys would like to come up and give them that real quick and also speak to your partnership a little bit.
Yes, this project has been great for Heritage, and it's certainly been great for the Master Naturalist. We just wanted to do a little something for Heritage, so we were able to acquire 2 iPad minis, which is hard, most of you may know, at this time of the year, to get them when they first came out. We received an award for the project from the state, and we all know how hard it is to get money from the state. And then we also... Yeah, okay. Maybe we'll make a new project. And then we got the board of Elm Fork chapter of Master Naturalists in Denton to match that grant with an additional one so that we could purchase 2 of them. So we have 2 iPad minis for Heritage Elementary.
You guys would get together for a photo.
just real briefly wanted to say how blessed and lucky I feel to work with such a wonderful group of teachers and PTA members and volunteers. I think at last check, it was tens of thousands of hours spent volunteering, and this group doesn't even have children at our school. They're just there volunteering to do the work. So thank you very much for working with us and partnering with us and making Heritage such a great place. And I still see my PTA president out there, so she's going to need to come on forward with us.
And if you've not seen the video about this garden, Toby, where can they see that? On their Facebook page for Heritage. It's a fabulous video, and it's a great garden. You could probably go over there, and Mr. Maxson will let you take a look at it if you want him to anyway. Fabulous job.
Congratulations. That's a great project. Okay, moving on. ACT Texas 2012 College Readiness Awards. Dr. Riddell. Oh, look at that. She's so quick. She's very ninja.
We are very proud to talk with you this evening about the ACT Award. This is the 2012 College Readiness Award, and we have 3 campuses who have been honored by the following: a significant increase in its ACT composite score over the past 5 years, while at the same time increasing the number of students taking the ACT assessment. This is a tremendous accomplishment, because normally the more students you have take an exam, the lower the scores go. And so we are very proud and honored to have Hebron High School, Mr. Finch, Marcus High School, Mr. Schaeferman, and Flower Mound High School, Ms. Lale, honored. And if you are here and could come up and receive your award, we would appreciate that.
I think every board meeting should have at least a couple awards. My personal, but okay. Moving on to open forum portion of our meeting. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees must fill out a speaker's card prior to the meeting. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes. Time cannot be deferred to another speaker, and the board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. So going on, the first card I have here, I think I have about 29 cards, so everybody settle in. The first card I have is for Paul Bennett of Beth Drive. Would you like to come up here to the Is it on? Okay.
What's the plan to relocate the tennis courts when they construct a freshman center?
That is later on in the agenda if you want to we'll be going over the whole
Okay.
thing. So
All right,
that is on the
thanks.
agenda.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next card I have is Don Quinter. I'm sorry, sir, we're not allowed to defer time, so you get, these are your special 3 minutes. So everybody gets 3 minutes.
Got to come up here.
Okay, sir, we can't, this is all recorded, so that's why we asked you to come up front.
I'd like to express my concerns about the new addition to the Flower Mound High School, the ninth grade edition. The logic behind moving the athletic fields, which seems to be like a waste of money to me, to tear down perfectly good athletic fields and move them north a couple hundred feet to build a new school. The ninth grade center, in my understanding of that concept, was to separate the ninth grade from the rest of the school. Putting it right next to it doesn't really separate it. The ninth grade center, to me, should be across the street where the athletic field should be. Those are my two concerns.
Okay, thank you, sir. Moving on, Ms. Betty Mobbs.
Members of the board, I'm not very good at this, so please have patience. I'm Betty Mobbs, and my husband and I, Royce, have lived in our little house for 45 years on Old Settlers Road, 3815 Old Settlers Road, and this is going to be right next to our house. And it's a little wood house, so it's not real soundproof, and it's going to be a mess for us. And we're in our 70s. I'm just getting over open heart surgery, and this is very difficult for us. And so I plead that you will reconsider that and make it, if you have put something in there, at least protect our home from people coming in. The traffic is going to be awful. We already have 18-wheelers going by the house to serve the schools, and let's see. Is it legal to have 4 schools on a little short road like Old Settlers? And we have never been notified of anything. We just found out maybe 5 weeks ago. All this was going on. And I feel like that's an insult to us after being in Flower Mound all these years and paid school taxes. Our 3 children went to Lewisville High. They graduated from there. They bused all the time. And it doesn't hurt to bus kids. I mean, ours were too, and they're fine. And if this is going to be disturbing our peace and quiet and our privacy, and we're going to have cars just backed up in front of our house, and because we face east, and we haven't been notified. I mean, we have not been acknowledged that we even live on Old Settlers. We were acknowledged living on Harris Road, and our house faces Old Settlers by Carnes. And we're just very disturbed about all that. And it's a lot of noise already from the Lewisville High School, Flower Mound High School sports thing. They are so loud down there. And we've never complained about that. But now it's time to stand up and speak. This is a terrible design. And it's like we didn't even count. We weren't counted. And I think that's an insult to us. And my husband's worked really, really hard. We've remodeled that old house many times. It's like a little house on the prairie. But we've raised our children there, and we have no place else we go. I would have to give up my friends, my church, and everything else. We couldn't afford to live in Lewisville or Flower Mound because of the taxes. And so I'm pleading that you will maybe put that somewhere else. Build the ninth grade school there, not the sports. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on, Nessa Greider.
Good evening. really hate to follow that because I'm very passionate about this. I believe that the Sports Center and the ninth grade center has been adequately designed and is in the correct place. And I did kind of a 64,000-foot view of what that looks like. And on the Peters Colony side, it will actually reduce the traffic by about 33%. And I mean, while I'm an avid sports person and have attended a lot of games, softball and baseball do not bring the traffic that football does, although we wish it would. It is a much smaller scaled sport, so we don't think that the noise and the lights and the things that most people tend to be concerned about will create a lot of that. But I am a firm believer that as leaders in this community and as adults, we are required to mentor and grow our students so they can become leaders. And that's one of our mantras at Flower Mound, is that we mentor the future leaders. And I think that ninth grade center will do that by giving them an opportunity to kind of step outside that high school role and get their bearings before they head into that. So I think that I applaud you for the site selection. And more importantly, without leaving on a negative contact, we really think that it's time for some equality. Flower Mound is a great school. I've raised 2 kids there, and they've gone on to be very successful, but we feel like we're missing some of the things that the other school has, restrooms and concession stands, and so we're really kind of hoping to get on that equality train and make a difference. So I applaud you for the site selection. I think you did a fabulous job.
Thank you, ma'am. The next card I have is Russell Schmidt.
Good evening. Again, my name is Russell Schmidt, as was announced. I'm a resident of Wellington for the past 14 years. I have seen Wellington grow from, at the time I got in, at 900 homes, which we currently now are at 2,300 plus. As I've lived in Wellington, I've been directly involved as the Amenities Committee Chair for 13 years, and I currently serve as the Wellington HOA President. I've also been the board member for the past 5 years. I've been directly involved as Wellington has grown, dealing with both the developer, as we have expanded the development from the early days, working with the developer to the design and placement of one of our pools, which is the West Pool. I've also been involved with the architect and design of our expansion of our clubhouse, which we have just completed last year. I've also been involved with the aspects of our sports court, our frisbee golf or disc golf, as well as our sand volleyball court. So I've been very involved in the development from an amenity standpoint, as well as a board and resident standpoint for Wellington. With that being said, I've also been involved with the planning that the LISD has worked with the architect for the expansion of the ninth grade campus for Flower Mound High School. And I believe as the last proposal that was put forth on the 8th or 14th, that is what I think is in the best interest of the community. And I think it was very well thought out and planned. And a lot of consideration was put in place for that site plan. And I just wanted to voice my opinion and say, from what I have seen through the 14 years that I have been a member of the Wellington Association, Homeowners Association, that it is of the best interest of the community, as well as the LASD, for the current placement of what is proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Todd Smith.
Given the fact that Wellington was put on the charrette committee, I would like to defer and go last and let all of Wellington speak prior to me speaking. Is that an option? Wellington was on the charrette committee regarding the Flower Mound High School.
I just do as they come in.
I know. I'm asking you, can I be last? As a favor, can I be last?
Sure.
Thank you.
Everybody always wants to be first. I'm not used to that. Suzanne Davis. You don't wish to speak? Okay. Jan Sander? Okay, so you don't want to speak either? Okay. Mary Gutierrez?
Good evening. I would like to have the following as part of the official LISD board meeting record. At approximately the 59th minute of the September 10th, 2012 LISD board meeting broadcast video, a person identified as Irene from BBK Architects presented concept drawings for the proposed Flower Mound High School sports complex on the property at the intersection of Old Settlers Road and Peters Colony. At approximately the 64th minute in the video, one of the board members who could not be seen on the video asked Irene the following question: have we had any input from the surrounding neighbors in the area? Irene answered, not regarding this property because it's the first time we're sharing this layout. Irene indicated they could get input, and the board member who first asked the question said, it would be a good idea so we don't get any backlash later. I want to thank the unidentified board member for making sure input is obtained from the surrounding neighbors in the area, especially those most affected by the proposed sports complex, the homeowners on Harris Street, and also in the Pecan Park Estates, Diamond Bell Estates, and Flower Mound Woods. These homeowners will be directly affected by the increase in traffic volume, noise from loudspeakers and fans, field lights at night, and the anticipated decrease in property values if the proposed sports complex is built at the intersection of Old Settlers Road and Peters Colony. Better than most, we understand the goal to provide nurturing environment to all students, but building a sports complex with the top-of-the-line facilities will probably not make the next Babe Ruth or Arthur Ashe. We are seriously concerned with the handling of this whole proposal and are very concerned that we are not being addressed or even acknowledged as tax-paying residents of Flower Mound. My husband and I are truly very dismayed that as senior citizens in this community, our lives and the peace and enjoyment of our private home may be disrupted by the building of the sports complex without any input from us or our other neighbors in the immediate area near the sports complex. We request that you return to the original plan of building the 9th grade campus at the corner of Peters Colony Road and Old Settlers Road. I would also request at this time that Todd Smith be included in all future discussions on the sports complex. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on, Gail Dwight.
Good evening. I represent the Wellington homeowners, and many of those homeowners are in this room tonight from Wellington. We didn't want to send 30, 40 people up here to speak with you. I do want to correct one thing that I heard from Todd. We were not part of the charrette, the Wellington HOA. We have worked extensively, though, with LISD administration to try and come up with a solution that would help, I guess, accomplish what you guys need to do without negatively impacting the neighborhood that surrounds the campus. I do have a letter to read from our vice president of our HOA board. It said, to LASD trustees and staff, our association staff has worked very hard since May of this year to stay abreast of the ever-changing plans for the new 9th grade campus. After all the meetings with Wellington homeowners, LASD staff, and many hours of research to find a solution that best fits the needs of all, we were very excited with the plans presented to the LASD board in August. I believe the process to reach that final decision was thoughtful and well executed. Any location changes at this point would be detrimental to the interest of our homeowners and our community. Sean May, Vice President of the Wellington Board of Directors. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to Cindy Rademacher.
Hi, I'm Cindy Rademacher. You did very well. Doesn't happen often. I am also one of the managers for the Wellington HOA, and I contacted Russell Rhodes today, and I'm sure that everyone knows that name. He's a real estate agent in the Metroplex, and I'm going to read to you what he wrote to me. Per our discussion earlier today, a two-story school backing up to a single-family residential home will have negative impact on those property values. Typically, smaller single-story homes are impacted less than larger two-story homes. This is evidenced by analyzing the actual sale price of homes over the past 12 years in both Cottrell and Kenwood. Based on the different options that I've heard from the school placement, the least negative impact on property value option would be to build the 9th grade campus on the east side of the campus as proposed in August. In order to give some credibility to my statement, I have sold approximately 70 homes in Wellington and over 470 homes throughout the Metroplex in 2012. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to call, and sincerely, Russell Rhodes. Also in May of this year, when all this came out and stuff, I also sent you information from the Buellers, and they said, it's another letter, but the middle paragraph says, in 26 years of selling our clients' homes and speaking with appraisers who are valuing our homes, we have determined the lost value to a home that backs up to a perceived negative, in your case, backing to a two-story school campus 100 to 150 feet off the back of your property line would decrease the value of your home by 10% the total value. That's anywhere from about $30,000 to $40,000, so 25 to 35. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Page Chauvin. Chauvin.
Only been 7 years.
It's okay. Nobody says my name right either. I'm Tyler.
I forgive you. All right, I am back again this month because I was asked to come and speak in favor again of the interdistrict transfer policy that is up for discussion tonight. I think it's a great idea. I love the fact that you're giving the parents a little bit more flexibility with where the students will attend school. I also, last month, asked that we look at possibly when a new school is opened or new lines are drawn. In the policy, it says that incoming fifth graders can stay on campus and incoming eighth graders can stay on campus. I would love to see that extended or see what the data is if we allowed the fourth and fifth graders, the incoming fourth graders and fifth graders to stay on campus, as well as the incoming seventh and eighth graders. Middle school speaks for itself. Once you get on a campus, you really own that campus. I think that's all the way across for a family. But middle schoolers specifically, once they've gotten somewhere, we really don't want to move them anywhere else. Let's leave their stability. Their world is shaken enough as it is. And then as for the elementary school, for those fourth graders, they've been on that campus, most of them, for 4 years already. And for them to change and go 2 years to another school, that's a hard change for them. I would just ask that you think about the students that are affected, not the numbers that they result in. But overall, I think it's a great plan. I think it's a great policy. I'm excited to see where it's going to go in the district, and I just want to say thank you because I surely don't say that enough to you guys. So thank you for considering this, and I hope it passes, hopefully with those even few accommodations as well. Oh, and those that already have transfers, I'd really like for there to be a grandfather clause in there so that they don't have to change either. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Paige. Stephanie McQueen? Or Stephanie, I'm sorry. I really need to start wearing glasses.
I live on Harris Road, and I am directly affected by a 70-foot light that is going to be 25 feet from my property line. I'm opposed to that. I'm also insulted that no one, and I'd like to say it again, I've mentioned it before, no one contacted me or anyone on my street, Harris Road, or Pecan Park, or Diamond Bell, to ask our opinion, to ask if we'd be on a committee. We didn't know until Halloween. That's when we found out. I think that you're doing a great disservice to the students in our city. You're taking money. It's an issue of fairness. You're taking money from education to bolster athletics. And I got to tell you, that's not what education is about. I am upset that you're taking $11 million and moving 3 athletic fields 1,000 feet. I walked it myself, and I thought myself, surely not. I must be mistaken. So I got in my car, and I measured it on my odometer. 1,000 feet, $11 million. You're giving $11 million to somebody. I don't know who it is. But the town of Flower Mound is paying $11 million for something they already have. That is not good money sense. I think that in the future, with the very near future, when you are discussing any plans with this complex, sports complex, the 9th grade extension, you include Todd Smith. Todd knows an awful lot of information that would be helpful to you. He would represent us where we have had no representation before. Thank you.
Ma'am? Next card I have is Anthony, and I'm going to say Benetti. Okay. I have a B. I don't know. You try and say that.
My name is Anthony Brody, and I'm here to ask a question, or maybe it will be answered later on. And that is, with the sports facilities moving, obviously they're going to have to be torn down, and then afterwards they'll have to be rebuilt. In the meantime, there's still sports going on. So what will happen to the teams that will be affected? Will they have a place to play? Will they have a place to practice? Or will they have to go to a neighboring facility in order to do so? That's my question. The other one is actually, since I've been sitting here, I've been listening to everything that's taking place. And I had no idea of the magnitude. And I would say that if any one of us, and I'm not sure if you live by the facility that's going to be proposed, that if I was living by that facility, I would not want it in my backyard either. And I don't live in that facility or that area. So I think that they have a viable argument, and I think it really should be reconsidered. We do have sports facilities. If we want to upgrade the sports facilities, put bathrooms, concession stands, we can do that exactly where they're at right now. We can resurface the tennis courts. We can do all that without having to move it and affect families' lives. So that's something I really think you should consider.
You want to stay for the presentation in a little while. They'll answer most of your questions. Anila Dunham.
My name is Anila Dunham. I have been part of LISD now for 12 years in various volunteer capacities as a parent. I was part of the charrette committee. I was invited to be on it. When I was first invited, I didn't know what charrette even meant. But after 9 months of being on the charrette, I realized what a extensive and inclusive process charrette is. We had members from the administration, from teachers, middle school and high school, district personnel. I see a lot of you there here who were on the committee. Me as a parent, there were some community members invited to be on it, and it was a very extensive process. In listening to everybody, the 9th grade campus was moved from the west side to the east side, and to accommodate some of the traffic issues, to accommodate the 2-story school over the homes. And I think the biggest thing that we accomplished by doing that was to connect the 9th grade campus to the current FMHS academic part of the buildings instead of connecting it to the arts side. A lot of studies are showing that if the 9th graders are separate but are still working with the system, they really develop good skills and learn. And I am really here to say, let's move forward. A lot of time and effort and studies and a lot of work has gone into making the best choice as to where the campus should be and how it affects students and the future of our country. And we are here to affect the future of our country. So let's just move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Rodney McNatt.
First off, I apologize for not being completely prepared. I thought I could give the time to Todd Smith, so I'll kind of wing it from there. As a father of two that will be going to the high school, and as someone who moved to Flower Mound a little over 3 years ago, one of the reasons I moved here is for the school district, for my kids. I think if you take the time to look at the most recent plan that Todd's put forward, you'll see that you still achieve the school, you still achieve the sports complex, you save what appears to be millions of dollars. We're not talking about a little bit, millions of dollars. You improve safety to allow the students to cross back and forth from one side to the other with a bridge that's still, again, from real rough numbers, because we don't have solid ones, but it appears probably maybe $8 million. Still achieving everything that everybody wants with an upgraded sports complex, with a campus that's on the same side with everything else. So I guess as a father that moved here with 2 kids that will go, I have an interest in both sides. I want a better school district, but I also live on Pecan Park. I currently live at the very end of Pecan Park, and when a football game was going on and I put my 2-year-old to bed, he says, "Daddy, who's that man?" I'm inside my house, thousands of yards from a football field, and I'm putting him in bed, and he says, "Who's that man?" You're going to move it hundreds of yards closer. Right now there's schools, everything in between. You're going to move it hundreds of yards closer and expect it not to be there. When music's being played, I'm in my backyard, I invite any of you over, you will swear that the neighbor has outdoor speakers and has a party going on. Not crazy loud, but you will swear it comes from next door neighbor. You're going to move it closer with a baseball field, with football field, with everything else, and expect it not to have an impact. Just please give Todd's plan the time. Invite the appropriate people to the meetings that you put together. I understand a lot of people have put a lot of time, but if you just get a few of us involved and a few of us as part of it, I think we can all come together and improve the school and not affect our livelihood there. I guess that's kind of all I got since I'm unprepared, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. Travis Jacobson.
Good evening. Thank you for the time to share my thoughts. My name is Travis Jacobson. I'm a resident of the Flower Mound Woods subdivision. I'm also the Vice President of Operations for the baseball organization at Flower Mound High School. So I represent those 2 organizations here before you. My home is approximately 1,000 feet from the proposed location of the new facilities, and so I have that perspective as well. I express my gratitude to the LASD board for their wise and thoughtful decision to locate the new facilities, the athletic facilities, across the street to the north of the Flower Mound High School. The current proposed location, for numerous favorable reasons, LASD has wisely acquired a plot of land to adequately support exceptional baseball, softball, and tennis facilities, which will allow my 3 children who now attend Flower Mound, or who will, the safe participation in athletics without having to travel off campus to participate in these sports, while at the same time allowing for uninterrupted educational experiences at the school. My subdivision, represented by the Flower Mound Woods HOA, is comprised of approximately 40 residential homes. Our HOA board and members are supportive of this new athletic facility, as is our HOA membership. I've spoken with many of them. We've discussed these facilities as neighbors at length, and we see only positive outcomes as a result of the proposed location adjacent to the high school. In fact, our entire neighborhood moved into this neighborhood with the full knowledge that the school's close proximity and the outstanding academic and athletic experiences our children will receive on campus will come as a result of our being close to the school. As a Flower Mound Woods HOA member, I fully support the LASD board's proposal and the location for these new facilities and express my gratitude to you for your thoughtful decision of the location. In addition, my HOA is also fully supportive, as are my neighbors. We realize the value of quality education and a high school and accompanying facilities within walking distance from our homes. You have my support as you endeavor to ensure the safety and the feasibility of educating my children and others on campus at Flower Mound High School as you strive to maintain a one-campus academic and athletic model there. Like I said, I represent the Flower Mound Baseball organization as the Vice President of Operations. With your permission, President, I'd ask that we have the baseball, softball, and tennis parents who are here raise their hand so that you know of their full support as well, if you don't mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Kurt Anderson.
Thank you, Board. I appreciate the time and effort that you guys have put forth. Just to let you know, this is in reference to the baseball fields. I'm a resident of Diamond Bell, have lived in the Flower Mound, Lewisville area for over 25 years. My son and daughter both have been raised here, grew up. Even after we moved to Flower Mound, he still finished out at Lewisville High School, went on, graduated, did great. I appreciate the education he's received here. The thing I do have, though, is I believe that a great case has been put forth that would not only save LISD and the taxpayers money, but would also earn you future revenue. I've lived in the Flower Mound area, and I've seen what has happened over this area. I'm also a realtor here. Russell Road, I know him. The Buellers, I know Darla and Kurt as well. Also, I've seen the damage that can be done by erecting structures such as emergency towers. And they mentioned the woods. There's a telephone tower that's behind one house that has kept that house from selling for I don't know how long. It's been on the market over and over and over. Also, such as emergency towers, tall park lighting, too close to residence properties, creating impediments that have helped deflate home values by as much as 10%, as the lady before mentioned, or more, and also they make the homes hard to sell. For example, just take Diamond Bell. Diamond Bell's 16 homes have a net worth of over $10 million of taxable properties. That would be about $250,000 in lost revenue over a 10-year period. That's not including the other neighborhoods. So basically, you're not only giving away the $11 million that you're losing by transferring it, as far as additional future revenue, $250,000, plus that can add up to even more, you're giving that away as well. So that's killing future plans as well. Just imagine what that money can be used for on the city and its children. The plan that Todd indicated sounds like a sound plan. It's a smart decision for the board to make. It just makes sense to cut costs and generate revenue. It actually, if you want a good example of what has happened to a neighborhood, you can look at Bell Creek. Bell Creek has a baseball field, Baker's Field. That field, if you look at the homes that have been on a border of the baseball field, those have decreased in value. They originally started over $600,000. They're now selling for $400,000. And if you look at the homes that are over there, most of the homes that are facing the baseball fields have canceled their listings. They have been either expired, canceled, and they're not selling. So people are stuck. And then when they're sell, there's two of them actually have been Z out, which means that they're not disclosing what price they actually sold at. So people are taking losses. So that's something that sometimes they look at and they say, okay, Wellington, yes, there's our home bordering Wellington. But you look at the value of the homes that are also that's going to be impacted over in the baseball field. I also, my last 15 seconds, want to say is that the traffic. When I mention traffic coming on Peters Colony will increase dramatically if they move the junior high, the ninth grade high school over. If they split the traffic and had one going up Old Settlers and one going over Peters Colony, you'll have better traffic.
Yes, sir. Steve Todd.
Well, I'm Steve Todd. I represent the Flower Mound High School tennis team booster club, and I'm just here to urge the board to move forward with the program that's been laid out. I think as Travis went through, Travis Jacobson went through, did a good job of laying out kind of the reasons why the athletic facilities need to be updated and the impact it can have on not just academics but on the athletics program. The tennis courts have been in disrepair now for about 3 or 4 years since the tornado kind of went through there. The courts need to be resurfaced, the fences are bent, and everything's been kind of on hold in anticipation of the new athletics facility. The other thing is the disruption, I guess, this would make if we have to bus kids, to different practice facilities or events. It's possible that we don't want all of our away matches to be held at away sites when they could be held at home. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Megan Euchre, did I say that right? Okay.
My name is Megan Euchen. I am a math teacher at Flower Mound High School, and I served on the charrette also with Anila, and she spoke very eloquently about the process we went through. It was a very inclusive process. We had teachers and students and parents and community members, and we worked incredibly hard to come up with a solution that would meet everyone's needs. And if you look at what we came up with, it is essentially the embodiment of the district's strategic design initiative. And I'm really looking forward to teaching at that school. And furthermore, I think it's essential that this school is attached to the current Flower Mound High School to facilitate the flow for the students, the flow for the teachers. And as a teacher who frequently has to walk through the hallways, I think it needs to be built sooner rather than later so that we can get through this seething mass of humanity that we currently have going on. So I would urge the board to move forward quickly with this wonderful school. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Chris Vaughn.
Thank you. My name is Chris Vaughn. I have 3 different hats to give you a perspective on tonight. First, I'm a Wellington Homeowners Association resident. I live a block and a half from the softball field and the parking lot where the band practices, and I've lived there since April of 2000. My kids were 18 months and 3 when we moved here. They are now in high school. They're doing very well. We would drive by the school on the way to preschool, and they'd be so excited that's going to be my school someday, and that's why we picked to live there, to be by the school. I asked my son, who's a sophomore, before I came, if he remembers anything negative about hearing the games or the band, and he said, "Oh, no, Mom, nothing negative at all. It made it feel like it was a small town atmosphere." He said, "I really liked it." And for those of you who know him, that's quite a lot to say for him, that he even heard my question. So anyway, he didn't have any complaints, and again, we use that as a source of pride and let them know that's going to be your big school someday. I'm a current Flower Mound High School parent, as I said, 9th and 10th grade student. My daughter's a 9th grader. The first thing she said to me when she got home from the first day of school is, "Mom, I wasn't nervous except going through the hallway." So we need to get the 9th graders in their own building, and that's one of the main reasons, as you know. So I wanted to share that comment with you. I was a strong supporter of the bond proposal for the 9th grade center, fully expecting my kiddos to benefit from it. Obviously, they're not, because it's taken a while, and that's why I would ask you to please move forward as quickly as possible. And I'm probably even a stronger supporter of it right now, even though my kiddos won't be in the actual building, because we need to have that for our future students and for the community. I also think the proximity of everything with the sports complex, it's safer, and we don't have the expense of busing them somewhere else, and it helps build that community. Last hat I have is as a volunteer at Flower Mound High School, and I actually came a little late, so I apologize, but I was leading a PTSA meeting before I came here. I spend a lot of time in the school, as many people do, and it is a little daunting to go through the hallway when it's passing period. And we do have a strong school, but we definitely need these enhancements to build that even stronger school and benefit the entire community. The 9th grade center is necessary. It will help my kiddos in a way that the hallways will be less crowded, but I'm really excited about it. My only concern is that it's taking so long to get the things moving forward, and I'm worried that the kids that could possibly use it in the planned time frame are going to miss out. We're going to have to wait for another school year. Let me see here. I'm sure I have more hats, but that's all I have to share with you today, and thanks for the memo I didn't get about red, but I'm glad I wore red tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. have 2 cards left. Mr. Jim Mahalik, he asked to speak after Todd, but Todd asked to speak last. So you guys can duke it out amongst the 2 of you, or you can just go first.
Good evening, LISD board members. Thanks for letting me come up here and talk to you. My comments tonight are about the FMHS reconstruction project. I too wish our concerns and input had been heard and requested before the project got to this point. You have been provided for the last couple of weeks numerous emails from concerned citizens questioning the current scope of this project. For the extent that this project ends up affecting all of these concerned citizens, we were disappointingly left out of any ability to help shape the future of this project, so we could hopefully be all happy with its development. No matter what the outcome, LISD needs to learn from this misstep and do better next time, much better. At least the HOA presidents from the surrounding area should have been formally informed at a minimum at the start of the process. Although better late than never, I sincerely hope that you will all take a close look at the alternatives proposed by Todd Smith. The alternatives may not be what everybody that surrounds this project ultimately wants, but his plans basically address what everybody needs. I don't believe anyone is asking to stop any of the project scope in front of us. We understand its benefits to the community and are fully behind the concept. It just needs more input and involvement from those directly affected by its outcome to help share the direction of this project so we can all be satisfied with its development. That's why we think Todd Smith's plans deserve a look and discussion before it's too late. I'm glad we all are now aware and involved. It's allowed us to take a closer look at the situation that we might not otherwise have bothered to try harder to understand the details of. But the details are now all around us. It is time to openly talk about them and address them. Although we should have been included up front, let's not make a second mistake and exclude us totally. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Last but not least, Mr. Todd Smith.
It is wonderful to see all the passion in this room. The one difference that the group of homeowners that I represent compared to the baseball, softball, tennis, and Wellington is they all got a seat at the table. We didn't. In the last month, I have worked diligently with my group of homeowners, 58 homeowners, to get a seat at that table, to ask you to look, to try, to give us a chance to talk more. You have refused those every time. You gave me one meeting. The only thing that was discussed in that meeting was how many more bushes can we put up? Can we put another tree here or there to block the tennis courts or baseball fields? Would not give us, every time I brought up anything about saving possibly $11 million, about the safety of the kids crossing the street. Didn't want to look at it. You know, I've got a few sound bites here from prior meetings. And Ms. Latham, you did ask the question, and it was answered, no, we haven't talked to the residents. And you did say, don't you think that'd be a good idea to prevent backlash in the future? If y'all would have talked to these residents, meaning the ones that weren't represented, you'd be well into this meeting by now and saved everyone here the time to come. Mr. Waddell, in the 614 meeting, I've got a sound bite of this too, you mentioned, and it was regarding the Bond Oversight Committee, you mentioned you felt strongly about citizen input. I know that you have received or at least 39 emails from the homeowners that I represent. And you've done nothing to get us to the table. Nothing. I also have a soundbite from the 614 when the PBK architect and they stated that Wellington HOA had been added to the charrette design team. Again, you got them to the table. After you got them to the table, the campus was moved. Within the campus moving, it also got them a new baseball field, along with the softball field and the tennis courts. Well, one of the members of the HOA backs up. She lives on Cottrell. She backs up to the facility, the high school. Her kid also played baseball. You know, that seems like a coincidence to me. It's just sad that you can't give us the time to come to the table. I have some great proposals right here. What I'd like is if you could add me to the agenda tonight. Let me
Sir, you have time's up. Thank you.
add me to the agenda, please.
It's against the law. We can't do that.
Then please get me to the table in the future. Please.
I would like to take a 5-minute recess so that we can, it was just requested that we have a 5-minute recess after the open forum, just so people can leave if they want without disrupting the meeting. So, we're adjourned for 5 minutes. Okay, thank you all. If you all please take your seats, we'll get back into business, please. Bummer. I have somebody's cell phone up here. Anybody missing their cell phone? Oh, you shouldn't have these pictures on your cell phone, by the way. I'm just kidding. It's a black cell phone. It's password protected, so I haven't seen anything. Oh, Mr. Smith. Oh, no. No, not yours. Okay, good. It's a black. It's a AT&T 3G. I don't know. I'm just reading the AT&T. Okay, well, it's up here. I don't know. Okay. Jeannie, could you take it, please? Or somebody? Oh, Brenda. Okay, thank you. I don't know if it's going to go off during the meeting, and I don't want to be blamed for that. Okay, we're going to move on to our informational items. Number one, Dr. Haynes, the LISD Strategic Design.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent. As you can see through the memorandum, we had another busy month. We had many activities going on to support the implementation of our strategic design. There are many items listed there. However, I would like to highlight just a couple. The first one I'd like to highlight is the branding committee work. We have not talked much about the branding committee and what they're up to, but they've been heavily into the design of the district's next logo and slogan that we're going to use to support the implementation of the strategic design. And this is just a heads up that in January, our committee or members of that committee will be presenting to you some options for the new district logo and the process that we're going to use from that point forward. But before we launch for additional input, we would like the board's consideration at the January board meeting. So you will see, and that's what is in your folders. This is the work of the branding committee up to this point in time, and if you scroll through that folder to the last page or two, you will see samples of the work that our branding committee has done. The branding committee has members from the district strategic design team, as well as we have a couple of students that represent, of course, the student input from our Career Center East facility, and they are in the graphics design program. We have been meeting out at the Career Center East so we could get student participation and would not take them away from their activity. So we're very excited about the new logo that has been designed for your consideration, and that will be presented to you at the January board meeting. The other area I'd like to highlight is on the second page, and that is our work with the Schlechte Center. Since September, we have contracted with Schlechte on an ad hoc basis to provide training for our new design coaches for the district. That began earlier this year. We have also worked with the president of the Schlechte Center, Mr. George Thompson, and a couple of you board members were involved in that district-wide professional learning on November 26th at the Hilton Garden Inn. We had about 250 district employees, teachers, principals, as well as our 3 board members and our superintendent that began to look at how are we going to measure success. What does success mean in LISD, and how are we going to measure our the implementation of the strategic design. As a part of that work on the 26th, Mr. Thompson also worked with our strategic design team on the 28th of November to help them come up with a plan as to what it is that the community expects in terms of performance measures. The other item, the staff development or the professional learning that we had occurred on the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th of December. And that was the title was Engaging the Net Generation, and that was looking at how do we engage our students in a different learning environment that makes them thrilled to come to school every day, that they're running to the building, and that's K through 12, not just the kinders running into the building, but everyone running into the building to get engaged in exciting, meaningful, worthwhile work. So as a result of our extensive involvement with the Schlechte Center, we are proposing to bring forward to you in January an item that will formalize our relationship with the Schlechte Center. And a couple of the reasons, other than they have provided outstanding guidance, because what we're doing in our district is something that very few, if any, other districts are doing, and that's completely transforming every aspect of our operations from a bureaucratic system that we currently operate under into a professional learning organization focused on the most important things that we do in the district, and that is to engage our students in high-level, profound learning. And that is not an easy task. We need to make sure that we are gauging and measuring our success along the way, and that we are doing it in a comprehensive and efficient manner. So the membership into the Schlechte Center Standard Bearer School Network is shared by several districts in the state, and that is listed for you on the next page. But getting back to the membership, it is cost-effective, and it will be a very efficient use of our district funds to accomplish the following. Number one, it will provide a customized framework for implementing our strategic design. It will also help us design a framework for assessing where we are now and gain clarity about the work of how we transform that will be implemented in phases over time. In other words, how will we measure the degree to which we are moving toward a learning organization? And three, we designed the professional learning to build capacity to perform at high levels throughout the district. And that is the base work that we've done with the Schlechte Center, among others, but primarily with them in terms of how do we systematically engage our staff into the meaningful work that we expect to go on in every campus and in every classroom in this district. The attachment that's with this item shows you the number of districts that we would be joining in the state, as well as districts that are currently involved with the Texas High Performance Schools Network. That is also identified for you, as well as the school districts that are working with us in our North Texas Regional Consortium. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, ma'am. Next is the announcement by the Board of President of Trustees, training hours for calendar year for all of our members here. We're required to have a certain number of hours by the State Board of Education, and I am to read this statement. The State Board of Education requires that at the last regular board meeting of the year, which is today, the president of the board must publicly announce which board members have met, exceeded, or deficit in meeting the continuing education requirements. The president shall cause the minutes of the local board to reflect the information and shall make this information available to the local media. And I'd like to announce that we have all exceeded the number of hours. Wahoo. Thank you all for putting in that extra time, other than everything else you do for the board and for the school district. But you all get gold stars. And nothing like the superintendent loves when his board members get excessive hours. Bring lots of new stuff. Moving on to discussion items. Dr. Burnett, monthly financials, bond report, and new construction report, sir?
You have those reports in your agenda packet, the financial reports through October 31st, the bond report through October 31st, and then the report on new construction. There are several projects going on. The LHS auditorium is underway. The old part of the LHS has finally been demolished. The aquatic center down at the 3040 at the Harmon campus is underway. They're digging furiously down there to get that underway. We have several other projects. We're looking at our wireless access initiative is also on your agenda tonight.
Thank you, sir. Oh, but we're not done with you yet. Spending plan for the 2008 bond funds. Dr. Burnett.
You saw this as an information item last month. This is basically a summary of the work at the board workshop in September that reflects the reallocation. We had a few additional annotations to add to the spreadsheet of the accounting spreadsheet, so that you might so you can better track the flow of the dollars. And if you have any questions, we'll try to answer that.
I don't see any. Oh, okay, Ms. Fouty.
The additional allocation of technology, is that, just for clarification, that's going to hopefully help us get the wireless up by the beginning of the school year?
Yes.
Next year?
Yes.
Hopefully.
That's the goal.
Why are you saying hopefully? Are you Are we going to, is 49
Well, we haven't,
enough?
we haven't let all the contracts yet, and we haven't, I mean, we just simply haven't done it yet. So the goal is to have everything up and running by August.
Always a hopefully thing when it's construction. Any other questions for Dr. Burnett? Okay, seeing none, moving on to TASB policy update 95. Dr. Haynes.
Madam Chair, there's no new information to share with you at this point in time.
That was easy. Thank you, ma'am. Does anybody have any questions? This is a discussion item. Seeing none, moving on. Location of athletic facilities at Flower Mound High School. Dr. Burnett.
We have Irene with PBK that's ready to make a presentation.
And I want to begin just for a moment. We're going to go through the background on this project. We've obviously heard a lot of people talk tonight and express opinions regarding it. I think it was Chris Vaughn who noted that that this project is based on the 2008 election when the community voted to build ninth grade centers at Marcus and at Flower Mound, and we're following through on what the voters said. There were thousands of people that expressed their opinion on that and said that they wanted those to be built. Once we came on board here in the district, it was clear that that was a strong interest on the part of the community that those ninth grade centers be built. And so we began the process to do that. It was 6 months ago that the current proposal was shown both to this board in an open meeting and to the community, and that was put out on the web through our stream. Working with the Charette Committee and others to develop that proposal and give it to you. We've been moving forward on that to put that into construction and to achieve a timeline where we can open this thing up as quickly as possible for our kids. 6 months ago was when we proposed this plan. But we're bringing it back up again tonight because questions have been raised. Had we not been listening to the people who raised the questions, this wouldn't be on the agenda tonight. So the fact that we're discussing it is evidence that we listened. One of the speakers, I think it was Mr. Mihalik, said that probably this isn't going to be exactly what some people want. It's oftentimes the case when you do a project that you have that you don't please everyone. But we have tried to be responsive to people when they've raised questions. One thing that I believe, and we're going to look at various scenarios that we've tried to develop in response to the concerns about athletic facilities on the north side of Peters Colony. But we have not done anything to go back and begin from square one and looking at beginning again with a brand new concept for the ninth grade center as a whole because we don't want to delay by at least 6 months and as much as a year on opening this building up. But what we will show you is a number of scenarios to address the concerns and mitigate them as much as we can for these sports facilities that we proposed last June be built, that we proposed in September be built on the north side. And we'll begin, Irene will begin with a timeline of this to kind of illustrate how do we get to where we are today. So with that, Irene, why don't you come forward and show us the presentation.
Yes. Good evening. As Dr. Waddell mentioned, I will walk you through the timeline of the events that took place to get us to the current design of the ninth grade center at Flower Mound High School, just to look at the options that were vetted by the Charette Committee and through all the process and through all the inclusive design meetings that took place up to this date. So as I said, I'll go through the history of the project. We will tell you some of the items that need to be addressed. Mr. Perry will come and do that, as well as give you some of the options for mitigating some of these concerns. Starting in January of 2012, the concept and the discussion on the Ninth Grade Center was brought to the Bond Oversight Committee so that a decision could be made whether or not we should be proceeding with Ninth Grade Centers. And it was overwhelmingly decided by that group, or supported by that group, that the Ninth Grade Center should go forward. In February, we started discussions about the feasibility of building these Ninth Grade Centers on campus, not only at Flower Mound, but also at Marcus. We had meetings with the principals of each of the campus, and we also met with leadership and shared possibilities and options on how these buildings could be sited in your existing high schools. On the screen right now, you see the 4 options that were developed at that time. These are the feasibility studies, just to basically say, yes, if you would like to put the Ninth Grade Centers on campus, based on what you have learned so far from your current Ninth Grade Centers, it is possible to do so. And some of the schemes that you see on top, some of the athletic facilities are not there. So since that moment in time, we knew that some of the options might necessitate that the athletic fields move elsewhere. Those feasibility studies were presented to the board on March 5th so that you could know some of the ideas that were being brought forward at the time. We also took those studies to the Bond Oversight Committee so that we could vet them with them and they could provide their input. And then lastly, in March, we met with representatives at the campus, talked about some of the possibilities, and began the process of the design charrette. The same process was followed at Marcus High School as well. In April, we kicked off the design charrette on April 3rd in this room, and it was a joint session with Marcus High School. We followed that with a specific charrette exercise at Flower Mound High School on April 10th to the 12th, where we had 40 people in attendance through a 3-day process where they all had the opportunity to provide input and look at how the process unfolded in front of their eyes due to their input and participation. We took the results of the charrette immediately and presented them to the Facilities Assessment Committee at their meeting on April 16th. As you may recall, the Facilities Assessment Committee included representatives from all the feeder patterns for the school district. So it provided a diverse group of folks that provided input and supported the proposal as it was shown. We took the results of the design charrette also to the Bond Oversight Committee. And then finally, on April 23rd, the district received an email from the Wellington Homeowners Association expressing some concerns over the proposed location of the Ninth Grade Center. Here's some of the images from the charrette. These are 5 of the options that were evaluated and that were ranked to the top during the design charrette process. As you can see, there were various options that located the building. One of the things that was important and that came out of the sessions of the charrette was that the building be attached to the existing high school to minimize the time for freshmen who had to travel to the high school. So all the options that you see here represent an addition that is attached to the building and that in some cases, or most cases, resulted in relocation of some athletic fields. At the end of the charrette, the design that was selected located the 2-story Ninth Grade Center on the west side of the Flower Mound High School campus. And this is the floor plan that accommodated with that. It tied the existing new learning hub into the existing hallway that leads out of the auditorium and gymnasium area. In May, we came here and made a presentation for the schematic design process to finalize the design from the charrette. We also held a meeting with our representatives from the Wellington HOA at Flower Mound High School on May 16th. We presented schematic design to the Bond Oversight Committee, and because of concerns, we've reconvened the charrette committee on May 30th to evaluate options. So the schematic design that we presented to the board is on the screen. When we were here to make this presentation, there were a couple concerns that were raised. And one of the comments that we tried to make at that time is, whenever you're adding into existing campus, you want to make sure that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So working with the charrette committee, developing a master plan that would be best for the campus. Ms. Kyer, you brought a concern about traffic along Peters Colony and making sure that that be addressed because currently traffic in Peters Colony is incredibly bad. And in conversations with the principal at the campus, the majority of the traffic coming to this end of the building is the ninth graders. So during that May 30th charrette reconvened group, we evaluated additional options. All the options were vetted. There was input from everybody that participated, and options that took the building and moved it closer to the building as well as closer to the road. As the first few options were reviewed, there were options that located the building separate from the main building because it was trying to keep some of the activities on site. But finally, the design that was selected is a design that is at the bottom right-hand corner that shows the ninth grade center attached to the existing high school and the location of the current baseball field and tennis courts. I'm going to go back one slide to point out something that I missed. During the original schematic design, the softball field had to be relocated because of the location of the ninth grade center. And the tennis courts were being relocated because the distance that the students walk from their parking to the existing high school, it's a very unsafe, kind of just very hidden space. So as part of the master plan, the goal was to create a much more open, better space for the students. In June, we came back to the board and made a presentation on the revised schematic design at your June 11th meeting. At that time, we showed a possible layout of the athletic fields at the existing property that the district owns at Liberty Elementary School. At that time, that proposal was considered not viable for a few reasons, including the cost of transportation, the distance, and then some of the safety issues of students. There were other considerations on other district-owned properties, such as Shadow Ridge and Harmon, that were also discarded for the same reasons. So this was the schematic design that was presented to the board on June 11th, again showing the location of the ninth grade center where the current baseball field and parking area is located, and relocating softball, baseball, and tennis. Floor plan of the same building showing how it ties back. And one of the concerns and one of the main comments, and it was brought up earlier, was students travel. This is the classroom wing at the high school, so it made the most sense to locate the ninth grade center closest to the classroom wing. So students and teachers traveling back and forth would have the shortest distance between class periods. This was the proposed location of those fields at the Liberty Elementary site. In August, we met back with campus staff and continued to develop the drawings, heading towards a design development presentation, which we made here on August 13th. We presented the same again to the Bond Oversight Committee, as well as reconvened the charrette committees for both Marcus and Flower Mound, and held a meeting at Flower Mound High School to review the progress of the work. This is the design development drawings. Not very different from what you saw in schematic design. They were just further refined, showing again how those additions would tie into the existing building. In September, we made a presentation on September 10th regarding the relocation of the fields to the piece of property across Peters Colony from the high school. Between August and September, between what you saw in August, which was showing the athletics fields at Liberty, or athletic fields relocated to here, the reason there was no discussion is that the district was in the process of purchasing and securing the land. So because of that, there was no discussion. Immediately after the land was procured and purchased, we began the first feasibility studies on that piece of property. And as soon as possible, or as soon as practical after that sale, we were here to make the presentation on a possible layout for those fields. Again, we met with, presented to the Oversight Committee, as well as presented to the town. We met with their Development Review Committee, and they evaluated the sports fields at that time. And this is the preliminary layout that we presented to the board for a possible configuration of those fields. As you can see, these were based on laying fields in an aerial photograph, so there were some items that still needed to be researched. During that meeting, Mr. McDaniel, you expressed concern with having one point in and out of this athletic complex off of Old Settlers Road, so that is something we took into consideration for further refinement.
Talking to residents?
Sir, she's making a presentation. Thank you.
In October, we came back and made the presentation of the refinement to the high school, to the Bond Oversight Committee, so they were aware that there had been a change in the location of the fields. We also held continuous progress meetings, 50% review meetings with the campus as well, and continue to go back to the campus to get their feedback. At that time, the field or the layout of the fields was refined based on now having a complete survey of the property and that showed us the topography and how the site drained and what our easements and setbacks were. At that point in time, baseball field moved back, softball field moved behind the church, and tennis courts were located towards the front. And at that time, we added the second access in and out of the property. So there would be two places to come in and out of the property to help mitigate traffic. In November, we met with the town of Flower Mound for their ACC group to review the fact that we have 2 specimen trees that are being removed, and those are being replaced with 76 new trees. We, during the month of November, at the November 12th board meeting, is when citizen input regarding concerns of the location was raised. We've done follow-up meetings with the town of Flower Mound, continuing in their process that they require any developer or any builder to follow. And then we've had meetings with staff on November 28th. That same day, we met with the concerned homeowners who had expressed their concerns at the November 12th board meeting. And then the district held an informational meeting in this room on the night of November 29th for people to come in and ask questions and find out about the development of the projects. This is a site plan that was shared during that November 29th meeting, which again shows the 9th grade center in the same location over the current parking area and baseball field, and the athletic fields in their current configuration across the street. And in December, we again met with the town of Flower Mound to review further on the site, and as well as we're here tonight at the board meeting to present to you where we are today in the current progress, which is again the same site plan that you just saw that was presented on November 29th. I think with that, Mr. Perry is going to make some comments.
Good evening. I think Irene's done a great job of bringing you up to speed of where we started. It's been a lengthy process. It's been a good process. We've had a lot of input to get us there. No matter what steps we take from here, there are a few things that we must do as we move forward. You heard tonight a little bit about tennis, the conditions of tennis over there. That's in need of a renovation. Softball coaches here tonight, baseball coaches here tonight, and they can talk a little bit about the conditions of the fields. But just a couple things. Drainage issues both at softball and baseball. There are field issues. We never did build the batting cage over there. We knew we were going to have to do something with the softball field, so the original plan to rebuild batting cages did not include Flower Mound. We need to do that. Restroom issues, backstop to home plate issues, sightline issues, and bleacher issues, specifically at softball. So softball needs a complete rebuild. Baseball could be a renovation. You heard tonight tennis could be a renovation. So there are things that we have to do to the fields existing now. We have some equality issues at Flower Mound that we need to address, including boys and girls sports. We have a female team that's changing in storage with no restrooms and lockers, or no restrooms and showers. We need to address that and fix that. And as we go through the campus and renovate the existing campus, we're going to take care of all of those issues. Traffic issues along Peters Colony. Irene briefly touched on that. We believe that on the west side, there's over 1,000 students that are dropped off and picked up daily. We believe between 600 and 700 of those are freshmen. So by putting the facility on the east side, we take 600 to 700 students dropped off in the morning and picked up in the afternoon off of Peters Colony and on to Old Settlers. Peters Colony is a smaller road. Old Settlers is a larger road that can take the traffic. That's always been an issue with the town of Flower Mound. In addition is the parking at the town of Flower Mound. We currently have a little over 1,800 spaces currently. We're about 300 spaces short. So as we address the conditions of the site, we need to address approximately 300 spaces. So just a factual sheet here for you a little bit. Distances, this is the site as it sits today. This is Flower Mound High School, no modifications, nothing's been moved. If we look just at softball, which is on the left half of that screen, the distance from softball to the residence to the west is 45 feet today. The distance from the residence to the west to Flower Mound Stadium is 455 feet. If we look at baseball, which is on the right-hand side, we see that the distance across Old Settlers from baseball to the homes is 111 feet. It's a fact to keep in mind as we move forward. So options or clarifications, opportunities to look at tonight? We can proceed with the current plan. This moves the 9th grade center to the west side. It moves those 600 or 700 freshmen that we just referred to from the west side to the east side, moves the 9th grade center to the east side as currently shown. We relieve a lot of the traffic on Peters Colony. We build the gymnasium, the indoor practice facility, the fine arts additions. We add 300 parking spots with this particular layout, so we address those concerns. We address the equality concerns that we just previously mentioned. And again, it's an opportunity to clean up the pedestrian traffic from the south parking lot up to the main campus. This shows the Flower Mound Sports from across Peters Colony. To note here, the baseball field is 25 feet from our baseball field to the property line. That seems close until you realize it's approximately 70 feet to a house and over 400 feet to some of the other homes, because a lot of the homes are pushed to the north. This particular option creates no delays. There's no additional dollars spent. We've given you a little cross-section there on the right-hand side. I know it's small, but there is a little outfielder there on the left-hand side of that little cross-sectional cut. I hope he's catching the fly ball. The coach is here. We can talk about that in a minute. But the town of Flower Mound has a requirement of a 6-foot masonry fence, and that's what we're showing you tonight, is a 6-foot masonry fence along the north property line. What we wanted to show you in this cross-sectional cut was the height of the poles, which is 70 feet. You can see the poles in that cross-section cut there, but we also wanted to show you how the land sloped. So from the top of that wall, which is a 6-foot masonry wall, it slopes approximately 4 feet. So from the center field of baseball to the top of that wall is approximately 10 feet. What we're calling option 1A is to proceed with the current design, adding landscape and a little taller wall. First thing we did when we did meet was we said, well, what's TxDOT do? What's the Texas Department of Transportation do? What kind of walls do you see as you're going down the highway? We contacted TxDOT, got their specifications on the walls. They're using a 10 to 12 foot wall that does have some acoustical properties. So in this particular option, what we're showing here is a TxDOT type wall that's between 10 and 12 feet tall. Again, looking at the same cross-sectional cut there, that center fielder now is somewhere in the range of 16 to 18 feet from center field. The other item here is the town of Flower Mound requires a 3-inch caliper tree, which is approximately 10 to 12 feet tall. And some of you may have heard, because of the trees that we're taking down, we have to replace 70-some trees. That's a big number. The option here would show us putting larger trees in than what the town requires. So it's an upgrade to the trees. It's an upgrade to the wall. Cost here is $250,000 as a budget estimate. We've talked with the town of Flower Mound. That has no schedule impact to our current design. You had a question tonight on schedule. What is the current schedule? Current schedule is we would come back to you in March with a contractor, recommendation for a contractor, recommendation to award a contract for construction. That would take us then to an April 1st start. We think this is a 5 to 6 month construction schedule, so that gets us done September or October 1st of next year. So we may be 30 days down. We'd like to be no days down with our fields, but these would be put together very quickly. We've talked with coaches and staff, and we think that's a very doable situation for us. Again, $250,000 budget estimate, zero schedule impact. Option 2 is proceed with current design modifications. This is taking the current design and shifting it down and putting parking up there. What this does for us is it causes us to move the concession stand. You can see the concession stand is no longer in the center. It also causes us to shift tennis to the west. We wrap parking around the backside. We were able to move baseball off close to 140 feet. It changes our drainage drastically. The site drains from the upper left-hand corner to the lower right-hand corner. I've brought our civil engineer with us tonight. I know he would love to come up here and talk about technical specifications, and I love that kind of thing, but I don't think that you would quite be as excited about that as I am. So just in general, it causes a major regrade to the site. It's a lot of fill. We've got to change the complete grade to the site. The next thing we do when we start moving the concession, we start looking at lift stations to pump sanitary sewer, and that's a long-term expense for the district. Estimated cost is $1.1 million, but the bigger issue here is that this causes us to go back through the town for a minimum of 6-month delay. There's a complete redesign. As you heard tonight, we've got to get surveyors back out, we've got to redesign, and we've got to start all over again with the town's process. Option 2B, we're moving at 64 inches. That's supposed to be 64 feet. Same situation here. This particular option, we would have to look at retaining walls between baseball and tennis. Now, we've talked with the town, and they've said if you move it 64 feet and all you do is add a retaining wall between baseball and tennis, it's an administrative change. You can stay on your current schedule, which is us going to planning and zoning either the end of January or in February to a February town council meeting. The cost is the retaining wall, the TxDOT approved wall that we talked about, as well as the trees, and now the retaining walls between baseball and tennis. This particular example starts flipping things, and anytime we start flipping things, we start looking at drainage. We start looking at those sewer pumps that we talked about, lift stations, massive retaining walls, massive fill. Can it be done? Yeah. $1.4 million budget estimate as of today, run by our engineers and our architects. A 6-month delay. Again, we restart the whole process. Again, another example of how it's flipped. Same situation. So one more, moving baseball down a little bit. We can move it down 84 feet. Again, retaining walls between baseball and tennis. We're able to squeeze it a little bit more. We showed you 64 feet. Now we think we can squeeze it a little bit more. The retaining walls get a little bit taller. We still think we're in the $450,000 range, a large chunk of it being the taller TxDOT rated wall to the north, the additional trees, and now the retaining walls here. And this is option scheme 2E. The 2E, we did a cross-sectional cut to give you some idea. This is the TxDOT type wall there on the right-hand side that is 10 to 12 feet tall. You can see a little bit better in this, our outfielder there on the left-hand side of the screen. So he's approximately 16, 18 feet difference from center field to the top of the wall. This is the wall that runs along the north property line. The additional trees, by moving at 84 feet, we've created a landscape buffer. We do the additional trees, we do the grass, and everything stays away. These are 70-foot poles. If, heaven forbid, one were to fall, we're now 84 feet away, it would still stay on our property. Might also add here, one of the concerns we heard was lighting. The lights are shuttered, meaning if you can picture the horse with the shutters on the side of it, that's basically what you've got here. The town of Flower Mound has a 0.4 candles at the property line. They will come out and test. And without us passing that, we will not open the facility. So meeting the town requirements for sound, the lights are shuttered. We've moved the light poles 84 feet away. We've increased the height of the wall. In this particular example, we've increased the height of the trees as well. One last example of an opportunity, or moving it 129 feet away, but you can see there in the middle there's a triangle-looking piece that is now our water retention. We have to change the grade of the site. We now need to make it, instead of sloping from the upper left-hand corner to the lower right-hand corner, we now need to make the site slope to the middle. We can move it 129 feet, cost a budget number of $1.7 million. There is a schedule impact. That's a typo. It's 6 months. 6 months to a year. It's a complete start over, a complete redesign of the site. It's a complete start of the town of Flower Mound. Sure, you've got some questions. We've got Irene with PBK here. We have civil engineering is here as well. Mr. Robert Howman from Glenn Engineering. We'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Perry, could you tell me again, I was going to write it down and you clicked and changed slides. What is the distance again from Cottrell Drive, which is the street of Wellington neighborhood that backs up to us, and the main campus? Whoa, thanks.
So softball to the homes there's 45. From the football stadium to the homes is 455, and then from baseball across to Old Settlers is over 110 feet.
Okay, and then what is the distance, do you know, between the new 9th grade campus and that little alleyway or the property line?
The new 9th grade, shown on the east side, Mrs. Latham. If we're speaking of distances, I did fail to mention here, this is the current design as it's shown right now. And we're showing that the distance from the softball field to the west is over 450 feet to the homes. Softball field to the west.
Softball field to Diamond Bell, that's what's west?
Yeah, I believe. Is that correct?
Diamond Bell Estates. Okay. Is 450 feet?
Over 450, yes, ma'am.
And
baseball from there to the property line is 20 feet, but the majority of the homes sit further north. So we're anywhere from 70 feet to the closest one to over 400 feet to some of the other homes. Again, current design as we're moving forward right now.
Ms. Duke, do you have a question?
I do. I have a couple questions. Mr. Perry, there's been a discussion about the sound and the lights. How many home games do we expect to be played?
Yeah, we visited with the coach today, and I'm sure he's going to have a winning season, but somewhere in the 7 to 10 for baseball. Same for softball, pending playoffs if there were playoff games. I did get the tennis schedule back. All his tennis matches start at 8 a.m. in the morning. Not to say that they couldn't go longer into the evening, but we're not talking hundreds of games.
Okay. And would you mind talking about what we're doing with the sound system to try to protect the neighbors as we have in the past, like at Marcus Football Stadium and things like that?
Yeah, we received calls from Marcus Football, and we've gone out and looked at the sound system, and with PBK and our engineers and design team have completely reconfigured the sound system at Marcus to point more into the fields instead of out to our neighbors. Plan on doing the same thing here, is making sure that our speakers point into the stands and not just broadcast out across the outfield. We can do the same thing. We're re-looking at the stadium at Flower Mound. We hear the concerns. There's no reason that we can't go make the same modifications at Flower Mound that we made at Marcus.
Okay. Couple more questions. I'm sorry. With the difference in the traffic, tell me about how it's going to affect traffic, how we're going to change Peters Colony and how many cars we might be taking off, and because I know and you've talked about it a little bit, but just elaborate for
for me, please?
So I could go further back into our presentation and show you the existing campus. Most of the students are dropped off on the west side there, towards the athletics, the gyms, and the auditorium side. We think there's over 1,000 kids that get dropped off in the morning. I talked with Mrs. Lale today to confirm those numbers. We think between 600 and 700 of those are freshmen. So by putting the ninth grade center on the east side, you can get a little bit better flow of our traffic here. It comes down, turns, comes back, it drops off. All that traffic is moved to Old Settlers, which is a bigger road. It allows us to handle traffic better than it does up on Peters Colony. So that's 600 to 700 students that we're relocating to Peters Colony.
Okay, one last question. It's been brought up about the walking bridge, and I would just like you to talk about that just a little bit. A walking bridge actually concerns me because, in my personal opinion, I don't think the kids are really going to use it. They're still going to go the easiest route, and that would be to cross the street, but there would be town issues and things like that and cost. So if you could talk about that for a minute, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Mrs. Duke. That's a great point. All of the numbers and impacts that we showed you tonight did not have the bridge in it. All of the examples we showed you did not have the bridge in it. We did talk with Chuck Russell. Chuck Russell's the planning director for planning with the town of Flower Mound. He is the first step in getting building permits and getting jobs going for us. He's been a great addition to the town of Flower Mound. He's fairly new. He's been very good to work with the town of Flower Mound. We have in writing from him that is going to be a very challenging issue. It's going to involve multiple departments, ADA issues, obviously cost issues are associated with doing that.
Mr. McDaniel, do you have any questions? No, I'm asking.
Mr. Perry, you said there were 7 to 10 baseball games, home baseball games?
Mr. McDaniels, I have the coach here with me. I'm sorry. 7 to 10 home games that require lights.
Okay, what about JV and freshman games?
Coach,
There'll be no lighted games for either of those? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniels. Thank you. Let me clarify. The question was asked, how many home games? That's how many home games with lights. It's 7 to 10.
Okay. How many? We talked about the changing of the drop-off pattern, but how many of our kids are going to get dropped off in that athletic complex and walk across the street anyway? And what's our plan for keeping them safe? That's probably to Dr. Burnett. More than you, Mr. Perry.
I've got Mr. McDaniels. I've got Mrs. Lale here. And I don't want to steal Dr. Burnett's thunder, but we've got Mrs. Lale here. I don't want to speak for her, but I'm confident that there's going to be a training period, and I'm confident there's going to be a knucklehead every once in a while that still does that. I mean, to say 100% it absolutely will not happen, I can't stand in front of you today and say that. But I'm confident the way the campus is run, there's going to be a training program, and there's going to be a learning curve, and we're going to have to teach parents and students to not do that.
My preference by far is 2C, where we move the baseball to further to the south and move the tennis up north. We're quite involved in tennis, and we play over at Flower Mound quite often. And the baseball field is quite noisy to the whole area, to the tennis, to back to the school, and that's a big concern. I feel like with the number of times the lights will be used with tennis as opposed to baseball, the sound difference will be much better off in that way. But tell me again how much you think that'll cost us additional to do that plan?
Yeah, this changes the grading of the site drastically. Also changes the functionality of the site. You can see where we've now pushed concession stand more towards the parking there on the east. So if you're playing a softball game, it is quite a walk to the restrooms or the concession stand. What's hard to picture here is the drastic drop across the site. Even driving by the site, you think, well, it's fairly level. But when you start really looking at it, the drop from the upper left-hand corner to the lower right-hand corner is very drastic, and that's caused us to lay out the site as we originally laid it out. So $1.4 million is to regrade the site. It's extensive retaining walls. We'll have to look at sewage lift stations for the concession stand. But I think, the 6-month delay is definitely something to take into account, as well as the usability of the concession stand where it's at.
Have we looked at, if we're looking at an additional $1 million, what if we took those 6 homeowners up there, and this is probably to Dr. Waddell and Dr. Burnett, and offered to buy them out at fair market value and kept the plan as is? And my main concern is the people on Harris Drive. They're going to be affected far more than anyone else is, and I feel like we're doing them quite an injustice. I don't want to buy anybody out at raised prices, but if we could go in at the fair market value and maybe save money in the meantime, would that be an option?
It's an option. And I think perhaps with one homeowner that's been discussed, I'm not absolutely sure of that, but and we don't generally talk about real estate issues, but when you say that's ultimately, it's up to the board whether you want to do that. I think we pretty much know what the land is valued at there, and if you were wanting to do that, our view is it'd have to be purchased. When you say fair market value, it's somewhere at what we paid for the land that we just purchased there. But we're not recommending doing that, but if that's your wish, we're not opposed to it either. I certainly understand that could be a possible or a partial solution. On the, you're still asking questions, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll wait. The lift stations, once you put them in, what's the maintenance issues on those?
Dr. Waddell, they're a pump. They're like anything else. There's maintenance on them. The pumps go out. They need to be maintained. You can imagine they're not exactly a clean thing to climb out into and exchange pumps. So it's a long-term maintenance and upkeep, and it's repair of pumps. We try not to put them in at schools when we can avoid it. Do we have them at a couple schools? Yes, we do.
Can I, one more response to you, Mr. McDaniel, is we're here to show these options to you all. All we're asking for ultimately tonight, we're well on our way on this. We've been working on this thing for nearly a year, and certainly on the plans for 6 months, but we're just wanting to get a little direction about proceeding. And as far as going back to your question about offering to purchase the land on the north side of this, if you all give us direction to pursue that, we'll certainly go and negotiate with the homeowners. So anything on this, these different options, is to show you what possibilities could be out there, and then get a sense of how you feel about it, so we can proceed to get this thing built. I'm particularly concerned, though, on something like 2C is the time frame. We're talking, I believe, minimum 6 months. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And so that means for these facilities that we won't have these facilities available for the teams to use during the fall season. And these are mainly spring sports, with the exception of tennis, but they do use them for practice.
Okay, so the lift stations, is that something that's not required if the concession stand is in the existing plan in the center? So that's only if we have to move it to some of those other options, like 1C or 2C?
Yeah, that's, as I would say, the current location of that there is centered on the site. Everything drains to the south. I say the sanitary. The sanitary drains to the south. So the further we move it east, the further we get away from where it drains, and we can't get the elevations to drain. I'm going to say water runs downhill, and just further we get away, we can't do it.
And then about lights, okay, so when you talk about them being shuttered, am I wrong that these lights will go off? I mean, they're not like parking lights that would stay on all the time. They would go, I mean, like at the conclusion of a game, all of these lights for all of these sports fields would be off. Is that correct?
That's correct. Mr. Sheffield, that's a great point. Parking lot lights, our parking lot lights are controlled by our management system, but they are normally left on every day until 10 p.m. or midnight. So putting a parking lot here or putting parking against the homeowners, the light poles are not as tall, but they will be on every day, and they will be on from 5:30 in the morning until daylight, and then they turn off, and then they'll come back on at dusk, and they'll stay on until 10 o'clock or midnight. Because frankly, if we have staff working late or we have an event, we're not going to have them walk into a parking lot that's dark. And so we leave our parking lot's lights on until 10 o'clock or midnight so that we're sure staff is safely left. And kids have safely left.
Ms. Foudy? Can I see 2E again, please? And the slide after this is in conjunction with that plan, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm in, as far as my input, I'm in agreement with the comments about the parking lot versus a baseball field, if we could move it further away from the property line, for instance, as you have done so in this plan, moving the lights further away as well. With my own children's school, for they're late for Boy Scouts, and I think about families with the parking lot behind their homes. The parking lot lights are on late, and the baseball lights, I think that's a good point Ms. Sheffield brought up, they would go off when you're having a game, which is not every night, but they would be going off before parking lot lights would, and parking lot lights are year-round. That's something that's been kind of going through my mind as we've been getting emails and looking at different options as we have tonight. I do like option 2E of, if we were to do any changes, I prefer option 2E because there's no schedule impact and the costs are not as drastic as the other one that was suggested earlier. I believe it was 2B. But I agree with Dr. Waddell for the kids and the ninth grade center and everything in general. We just need to move forward. And I'd like to thank everyone who's been part of the charrette process and the administration, because I know you've been working very hard to provide multiple options. So, thank you.
I have another question. In regard to the estimated cost, will that be, where do those monies come from? I mean, that's over the budget that we've now allowed for the ninth grade center, correct?
Mr. Sheffield, we think with the current budget, we think we can absorb this into the current budget.
All options?
Not all options. This option,
So this
yes.
option and below?
Yes.
Okay. My other question is just in regard to the charrette committee in general. How are those members of the charrette committee chosen or selected to participate?
Mr. Sheffield, one of the things we did is we contacted the campus and we said, give us names of parents and students and community members that are active in the town of Flower Mound, or I'm sorry, with the Flower Mound campus. And that's how we chose our charrette committee. We wanted staff that had seen the ninth grade centers both at Hebron and at Killow and at Harmon. We wanted students. I think the students' participation for me was the most eye-opening. I mean, I think we know exactly how to design a facility, and a student will tell you it's not how we use it. So I thought the students' participation was incredibly valuable. We had parents, as you heard tonight, that were a part of that. We did have neighbors that did come in after our initial meeting. Absolutely. But most of that was associated with the main campus, and that's how we went forward.
Last part was important too. It wasn't, they weren't closed meetings. So we did have people coming and going, that anyone that wanted to come visit with, could do that.
Mrs. Sheffield, Irene makes a great point. We also did the feeder schools, elementary and middle school. We wanted their input as their kids went up through these through the grades.
Ms. Latham?
Thank you, Ms. Carter. The close proximity of the ninth grade campus to the main campus is extremely important, and we've proven that moving that ninth grade campus to other LISD-owned properties and busing kids back and forth is a bad idea, and it's a very expensive idea. So I really do like the way that we have the ninth grade facility positioned. Can you go back to that with the blue, where they're shaded blue? Right there. I do like how we have put the ninth grade center on the campus with the main building. And this appears that there are 2 drop-off possibilities for the ninth grade campus. Am I looking at that right?
Yeah, I think the one you're looking at there that's between the main building and the ninth grade center, that's for buses.
Okay, that's
So we
for
keep buses there.
Okay, so the buses are not sharing the parking lot with mom and dad's
One,
cars.
one spot. We drop all off there at the buses. They enter there where you can see it's shaded. Ninth graders go to the left, 10 through 12 go to the right.
So having the buses with their own traffic flow will help also. Okay.
It's part of the current layout. It's been changed.
I want to take a minute, and I'm not sure, Michael, if you want to answer these, but one of the comments made by one of the speakers earlier dealt with the money, taking money out of classroom. And I want you to maybe talk a little bit about, or maybe Dr. Burnett wants to do this, the difference between bond money and, whoops, help me, maintenance and operations money.
Your bond monies that were authorized in the 08 election are designed to be used for the building renovation of your facilities, and they can't be used for salaries or operations.
Right. So bond money can only be used for brick, mortar, and technology, correct?
That's correct, in renovations and equipping the buildings, and now you can use it to pay the salaries of those people who are involved in the construction or the renovation of the buildings. But the purpose has to be for the construction.
And then another clarification, Dr. Burnett, if you would, was there was a misconception that tax dollars collected for Lewisville Independent School District, which has 13 different communities that it services, those tax dollars collected are not kept in the city or the town that they are collected from. They are used collectively for the entire school district, correct?
The taxes that are levied from the tax rate that you adopt for your M&O and for the INS purposes are for the benefit of the entire district, subject to the laws and regulations and your policies for your budgeting guidelines and those kinds of things, which is one of the reasons we're talking about the reallocation plan, which is your budgeted $2,008 and the possibility of considering a change. But it's all it's all one pot of money for the students throughout the district.
Throughout the district. Okay, Mr. Perry, can you go back to scheme 2E? And I'll be quick because somebody's tapping their nails down there because it's 9 o'clock. Put it, or their pen. Okay, so I like this option. This moves the baseball field 84 feet off of the closest neighbor. The closest neighbor is plot 108382, which is Mr. and Miss Moss. The next closest is Miss McLean. The next closest is Sandow, and then Bestie, to our property line. This 84 feet away from that property line is twice what the softball field is currently located from the Wellington neighbors. So I think that is more than sufficient. I like that you showed how the lights their, what do you call that, Michael?
Shuttered?
That shutter does not go beyond that 84 feet. I know that Mr. and Ms. Mobbs had suggested maybe a parking lot back there, but I'm glad that we looked at several options because parking lot lights don't necessarily have the same shutter amount, and they're on more, which would be a disturbance because then it would be even closer to their property line, right? If we just put a parking lot back there?
Our intent with this particular plan is a green belt, basically. It's trees and bushes and grass.
Okay. So I am inclined, I like this scheme 2E because I think it does help those residents who live closest to the fields. The other residents are a good 400 feet from our property line. I don't think that we've measured from an actual field. But we had residents tonight speak who live closer than that to the football field, which I know is louder than a baseball field. So I like this scheme 2E. I like that it's not an additional $450,000, that can be absorbed in the project. I did understand that correct? It's not an additional $450,000.
No,
And I like that there's no schedule impact because the 9th grade centers have proven effective, and it is about the kids, and they are the best thing for the kids. And we do have athletic facilities over there that are not equitable to some of the girl teams, and we need to get that addressed. And we also have some athletic fields that are in need of significant renovation or redo. So do it now. And I also like the traffic flow. I like that we had the input from the town and where we needed to pull traffic from. I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you, Mr. Craig.
Thank you.
Ms. Duke, you had another question?
I did. We heard the statement, $11 million, many times. And as you've stated, we had to do updates. We have to do that. And as Ms. Latham had expressed, this is not taking away from our children's education. This is total separate money. But can you talk a little bit about where that $11 million number came from? And then I just have one more thing.
Mrs. Dugley, yeah, so let's start with the $11 million number. The $11 million number encompasses all of the sports at Flower Mound, with the exception of the arena. So in that $11 million number, if we go back to an indoor practice facility there in the southwest corner, the bottom left-hand corner of this, that's over $3 million to build the indoor practice facility. It's in the lower left-hand corner there. So that drops us down to about between 8 and 8.5 is what our budget number currently is to move the fields across the street.
Okay. I just kind of have a statement now. If we were going to change anything, I would say 2E would be my next best option for making changes. But I do want to state that we do need to move forward because the voters in our community, in our entire district, voted for this package. They want these campuses, and we need to do what's right for our kids. Because in the end, we're all up here to take care of the kids. And someday they're going to be sitting up here rather than us, and they're going to be running our communities. And we want to do what's right for them. And I just want to say thank you to all the people that have been involved in how our staff has gotten so many different groups. We can't, unfortunately, we can't please everyone, why I'd like to, but our district's just too large. We did a great job, I believe, in getting so many different people involved and putting it on the internet and doing emails and all the social media. So I just want to say thank you to the staff for that, but I just hope that we can move forward from here. Thank you.
Ms.
Could I clarify, get you to get a little more clarification on her question about the $11 million? We've heard tonight that the softball fields and the tennis courts needed a lot of work. So I asked the question of Irene a couple days ago, what the actual cost when you subtract that out would have been. What was that figure?
You take the amount of money that's needed to fix tennis and softball, you still subtract another $2 million from the total, so it would be just $6 million for the building the complex across the street in addition to what you had to do as it was.
Thank you. Mr. McDaniel, do you have something else?
I have a quick question, probably the baseball coach, but with 84 foot from your fence to the property line, that should preclude anybody knocking balls into their property, should it not? Good answer.
Okay, I guess I'm the only one left. Tom Ferguson was still here. He would say I'm going to sound like Ronald Reagan, which I don't mean to. I apologize for that. The estimated cost of 2E, which, you know, it sounds like general that the board likes 2E, the $450,000. And I can think of where we can use $450,000 across the district, because we, as a board, have to look at the big picture. And we're looking at 2 schools that need to be reconstructed because they're falling down, because our kids are just using substandard facilities over in the colony, or even just a number of places in Lewisville, Hedrick Elementary, or Hedrick Middle School, I believe it was. So $450,000, it's almost $500,000. So I understand that, you know, to affect the people that live in this area, but we also have to think of the big picture of the people that live across the district who are paying who that $450,000 it's coming out of their pocket and their tax dollars. I prefer the original one. I understand that the board is wanting to appease the neighbors behind and make it so it is quieter. I have a whole other thing on that, but I won't discuss that right now. I worry about the other kids in the other across the district who need that money for a better bathroom, a better classroom that has better technology. So I would prefer, I know we're saying that we're staying within budget, but it's kind of similar to saying that, okay, I got a Coach purse last weekend for $80, and it really went for $325. But I saved, I'm not even trying to do the math, I'm tired. But math was never good for me, but what I'm just saying is that I understand. So it's with trepidation, I would say yes, 2E probably would be the best one. I would prefer to go with the original one, but working with the neighbors and being a good neighbor, which I guess LISD really should be, try to work with our neighbors, I could handle 2E. I would not handle anything more than that. I can't imagine going any higher on the budget than that, because that is taxpayer money that is coming from all 13 communities and not just the people that live in the general area. So that is my feeling. So I believe we have heard from all the board members, and I believe you've gotten some kind of direction, Dr. Waddell. So whichever aspect do you want to say something else at the end?
Yes, ma'am. Just I appreciate the input and the work. I just want to say there's been some complaints that we haven't been listening to anyone. We would not be coming forward with these if we had not. We have a number of staff that this is just about all they've been working on since our initial meetings with some of the residents, and then that public meeting we had in here. That's just about all they've been doing. And it's to respond to the concerns that were brought forward. I think that's great. That's what we have been trying to do all along, is, and it could be arguable, you know, you could have done this or you might have done that, but our interest all along has been to respond. We could see problems that were put up regarding the locations of these fields. We're building in the middle of suburbs. And it's going to be an issue no matter where we go. And it's been that way from the very beginning, from the time the first plan was put out there, and whether it was the ninth grade center on the west side, sitting right next to those Wellington homes, or issues regarding the Liberty site, regardless of where we go, and this would be true anywhere in this district, that where we decide to build, there's going to be issues. And the only way we've got to build, unless we decide, no, we don't want ninth grade centers, and I really hadn't heard anyone say that. So we have to put them somewhere. And I will point out that I believe with the awards given to Flower Mound High School on that ACT, we're still doing a pretty good job of academics there, and I'll note that Flower Mound High School is the second highest school with the second highest number of merit scholars in the state of Texas. So academically, they're doing a pretty good job over there. But we also enjoy extracurricular activities for our kids, and it's enriching for them. But we have to put them somewhere. But there's been a number of problematic issues no matter what we've done, and we've tried to be responsive to that. This may not be everything that some of the citizens have asked for, but what we have tried to do, though, is try to be responsive and come up with a good plan that meets a large numbers of their objections. And we hope that most people will see that we've made an attempt to do that. We came here for a sense of direction, and I believe we have that. Our intention is to move forward on Scheme 2E and get that rolling. And we don't need any more, according to Mr. Perry, the city says we can move forward with no further delay on that. So that's our intent, is to move forward following the Scheme 2A. 2E, that was my accent.
Thank you all very much. Seeing no other discussion. Well, thank you all for being here. Yes, Ms.
Just real quick, I would just like to say thank you to Mr. Perry and to Irene and to Dr. Waddell and Dr. Burnett, because before Dr. Waddell came here, we didn't get input from the community. And so while we may not have done this perfectly and we have room to improve, I think like Mr. Mihalik said, we have some lessons learned from this, and I hope that we'll do better in the future. But this is still tons better than the way it was before, and I applaud your efforts, and I appreciate it very much.
We do appreciate all the hard work put forth by the administration and by the citizens. So, you don't want to hear our legislative agenda. Okay. Moving on to discussion item number 5, legislative agenda. Dr. Waddell.
I hope this isn't a walkout because we're about to talk about the legislature. But they are meeting starting in January, and so we're getting ready for what will happen to us in that respect. And there's a lot of issues on the table, and so we believe we need to have some items. Our legislative delegation wants to know what we think. They rely on us for that. So we're proposing some legislative issues that we think that for your consideration, some priorities, and we just want to show those to you, and then our intention is to bring them back to you next month for your approval with changes that you suggest, and then we can send those off to our delegation and also use that in working with them throughout the legislative session. There's some important issues, and we have some major categories here under what we call learning and teaching, which is instruction on assessment and accountability. There's a whole lot of action taking place already on that down in the legislature. and we expect there's a number of bills that have already been filed, and we expect a lot of activity there. And digital learning, in the last session, the legislature did away with textbook allotments, and we think we still need further assistance in terms of moving digital technology, digital learning forward. Funding, of course, though we think there's not going to be a lot of movement on that because of the lawsuit, but we did lose $54 million the last 2 years in our maintenance and operation funds, and so we have some items here to address funding adequacy and inequities, and then teacher retirement system. So we're proposing that to you. Be happy to answer any questions that you have on this, and then we'll bring that back to you next month.
I just wonder, Dr. Waddell, if we need to list more examples of how private schools are not required to do some of the things that public schools are required to.
Do you have something in mind there?
Well, I put my two somethings on here. I
Yeah,
just wondered if
they're
there
both
was
there.
more. Yeah.
Oh,
I just
well,
wondered if there
I
was
see.
more examples that we should put to hammer
I
the
think,
point home.
there could be, and we'll spend some time talking about that, but I think these two bullets really hit the major points. We have a state senator who said again, he reiterated this week in the paper, that he would not be in favor of choice if private schools have to follow accountability standards. And so the issue of following the same mandates, I think, is a big deal in the second bullet, and also keeping a level playing field. That if you're going to take state money, you got to take all kids.
Yeah, because I don't think the general public realizes that private schools aren't required to accept all students, irregardless of
They can take who they want.
their physical or their mental abilities, what their native language is, or what their household income is or is not. And
Right.
they're not held to the same federal and state mandates that public schools are. So they're able to basically pick and choose who their students are.
Right.
And charter schools are not either. That's a good point, Ms. Fowdy.
Should we say private and charter schools?
We probably need another major bullet for that, because we're talking about vouchers, and charter schools don't benefit from vouchers. They're publicly funded. Now, one thing about charters that's we've been thinking about here lately is that they're fully funded by the state, and we are not. What's our percentage of state funding, Dr. Burnett?
About a third.
So 33%, whereas a voucher...
32%.
Vouchers and charters would both be funded 100% by the state.
So can we have a bullet on there somewhere for the charters then?
If we'll make a note to do that.
Okay, that'd be great.
The issue on charters coming up is to lift the cap. I think that's the big deal there. And of course, any lifting of the cap on charter is going to divert money from public schools.
But I think just by having it on there, because sometimes, especially with all the new freshman legislators that we have there, they might not even realize that charters are funded at the 100% and we only get a third. So even just having a bullet under there, they might go like, if they read it, which we hope they do, but you never know. But that would be something that would be, just have on there. Even if, I think the little inch of space it takes up on our piece of paper might.
We'll make another bullet for charters, separate from vouchers. And I think we'll probably add the deal of not lifting the cap for charters, because that would reduce funding.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
I kind of feel like the language, particularly in the top part, needs to be simplified. I mean, I think when you talk about power standards, I don't know that that's language that everyone understands. And I mean, if you're putting that out for our, what I would hope is that this is an informational tool also for our community as well as for our elected officials. So I just kind of think like sometimes to me the language is very geared toward those in education.
I get your point.
Thank you, Ms. Sheffield. I love acronyms. Ms. Fowdy, do you have anything? No? Ms. Latham? Mr. McDaniel?
I feel like this is rather broad, and it should be, but I think we should also have some simplification to say, okay, we know that you have a problem, and they do have a problem with budgeting at this point, and the amount of money is coming in. I think we ought to have some priority lists as to, what our priorities were. If you can only do so much, this is what our first priority would be. And not only simplify it, but also put it in a priority list so that they know what our real desires are in an order that we choose.
What tends to happen in legislative session is those things get whittled down between January and May. These are all important to us, every single one of them. There's really not a lot on here, but I think we would say that every single thing that we have here is pretty important, and it would probably be optimistic to think they would all be part of a bill. So they're beginning points. And I give our delegation a lot of credit. They say, what's important to you? What are you looking at? I think there's going to be bills about every one of these things, and it's just taking a position on those bills. We'll do what you want. This is your legislative agenda. My view is, I've been doing this a few years, I would rather let them do the whittling and not us tell them what's okay to cut, before we get started.
Any other discussion? Okay, moving on then to board policy, board meetings. Dr. Haynes.
Madam Chair,
Dr. Haynes?
Madam Chair, there has been no additional information regarding these two board items. This is mainly cleanup items to to align the board policy to the board operating procedures.
I think I know the answer to this, but I just have a quick question. Why did we decide to change the BE local rather than the board policy and board operating procedures? The problem was the two didn't match as far as the amount of time required for board members to submit items to be included on the agenda. So I was just curious who decided that we should change BE local rather than change the board operating procedures.
Our view was that the most recent thing the board did was create the operating procedures, and the policy was much older. So we went with the most recent board action.
Well, personally, I would like to see that changed back to 5 days of, as a superintendent, you can put an item on the agenda just prior to it going out in public. I don't see a need for having to wait 10 days out to put something on. If something comes up that a couple of members think is a priority, if the board disagrees, they can always push it off to the following. And so I just feel like that we ought to go back to the 5 days instead of 10.
I tend to agree. 10 because it's not 10 business days, correct? It's 10 calendar days. What did you say?
That's correct.
Didn't you guys, before I was back on the board, didn't you guys just change that board policy within the last year to the 10 days?
Well, we came
So
up
I
with a
don't
board
understand.
policy. We didn't have a board policy before, so we
Exactly.
drafted one. But
Right.
we didn't realize that this BE local policy existed that contradicted what we had said.
Right, but you picked the 10 days when you made the board policy. That's what
yeah,
I'm
that's
just
true.
trying to understand.
Since then, I've tried to implement this procedure, and I'll say 10 calendar days can be a little tricky. But
No, and I understand that. I was just trying to get the past history because, I mean, you don't want to have it, I think, you don't want to have it too close to a board meeting because for staff reasons, you can't just keep adding agenda items because that adds hours to their day and possibly it can wait till the next month rather than add it, the Thursday before a meeting or something. So, anyway.
I agree with Ms. Steve, just from the pure standpoint of the amount of time it takes to prepare for an agenda item. If we get our staff to gather information or take the questions that we're wanting addressed in the agenda item and gather that info and research, if you're just going to need enough days, calendar days, not just business days, to, in respect for our staff, to get that done. I agree with Ms. Duke.
Just have been involved with the scheduling of the meetings and the setup of the meetings. I understand the 10 days. 5 days, we could be accused of trying to push things through. So 10 days, it gives it so that it has to be well planned. The administration will be able to plan well and not look like they are just getting thrown something at the last minute, which makes the district look bad. So I mean, that was one of the things when we discussed the board operating procedures, why I like the 10 days, because it actually gives the time for everybody to be well prepared and not have the deer in the headlights look. So I prefer that myself. So does anybody else have any questions?
Well,
or
with
concerns?
that train of thought, maybe we should just say no agenda items are put on unless they're on 10 days in advance.
We pretty much have that rule. It would be it would be close to an emergency. I cannot think of a time we've had an agenda item inside of that. I've told the leadership team, don't bring things. That would be 5 calendar days to be Wednesday. I don't ever remember them bringing an agenda item saying, I got to have this on. It would have to be an emergency nature, and for us to do that, I would look real dimly on any of my team members for trying to get something on. They've been told to come out, have their agenda items available the week before that. So we pretty much practice that.
But I thought that our setup of having, of action, discussion, and information items kind of protected us against any of that because we don't vote until the third meeting after anyway. So if there's something that came up that a couple of board members, or 3 or 4 board members thought was important, it's just going to be an informational item anyway.
In all due respect to your comment, I want good information. I don't want fly by the seat of my pants. I've got to get this ready for a board meeting because the board members are requesting it. Information. I want it to be thorough, and I think by extending it or keeping it at 10 instead of rushing it up to 5 is respectful to our staff and will allow us to have appropriate, adequate information we need for an information item.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, moving on to board policy, admissions, interdistrict transfers, and classroom assignments. Dr. Rogers.
Ms. Kyer, Board, first off, I'd like to thank Ms. Chauvin for the nice comments. I appreciate her support of this. Just briefly, the policy is being modified in 3 areas. One, what are the factors that will affect approval or denial of the transfer? We're wanting to add the allowance of non-resident, non-exempt employees to bring their children with them. That's the paraprofessionals in our district. And then there's a tweak to the eligibility for extracurricular activities. So, question?
yes, can we, or do we have data to address the things that Ms. Chauvin brought up in her comments, which was to grandfather fourth and fifth graders and seventh as well as eighth graders?
Currently, of course, we do allow fifth and eighth graders. I would like to make it clear, any student that gets a transfer to a school is always allowed to finish their entire time at that campus before they change levels. So if a student's given a transfer in the third grade, then they're allowed to finish, if it's a transfer, through Mr. Ellington's office. As far as fourth and seventh graders, I don't have data on that, but certainly anytime we recommend rezoning, certainly the board could direct us to do that. We have been pretty free as far as giving grandfather clauses as much as we can. We certainly understand the difficulty of parents moving their children. It's nice that no one wants to leave their current school.
I love that we're adding paraprofessionals into this mix. I think that is just perfect. My question is regarding the eligibility committee. It said that the membership rules were listed, but I didn't see them or I missed them. So that, who sits on that committee to determine if a student is eligible? And would that not be dictated by UIL because you're not supposed to transfer for athletic reasons to begin with?
Yeah, and certainly we can't adopt something that is less restrictive than the UIL. All of our students that participate in extracurriculars are, under those guidelines. But currently, there's board policy that if a student, for instance, the parent moves from Marcus High School zone to Lewisville High School zone, that student loses a year of varsity eligibility. That's board policy. That's not a UIL policy. The current practice, the policy states that there can be appeal directly to the superintendent for that situation. And what the change in the policy is, Ms. Sheffield, is that instead we would create a committee of the schools that are not involved. For instance, so Marcus and Lewisville are involved, so you would have a principal representative and the athletic coordinator representative from the other three schools sit in on this hearing and hear from the parents to why there might be extenuating circumstances.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to board policy, new facilities. Dr. Rogers.
Yes, ma'am. Really just call your attention to a couple things. One, we're changing the policy right now states that all 7 board members must be in attendance before voting on a name for a facility. Certainly, with the situation as it is currently with our board, we need to tweak that policy and say that just all board members would have to be present. The other thing that's really probably the major change is the section about being named for a person. And so you saw last month the changes that we added to that.
Okay, any discussion on that one? It's pretty straightforward. Oh, Mr.
It is, but I
McKay.
have a question, Dr. Roach. Any board could supersede that and vote for anybody they wanted to anyway, couldn't they?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I think Dr. Waddell made it pretty clear earlier that, we certainly do things at your request.
Okay. Moving on to the 2013-2014 academic calendar. Dr. Rogers, your favorite thing?
3 in a row. We did post the 2 options. There was a calendar committee of 34 folks with a lot of representation and 2 options. I will tell you that I received input from Communications Office today that the online voting had stopped, and there were a total of about 4,200 votes through the online survey, and 79.7% of those votes, or 3,368, were cast in favor of calendar option A.
I hear a yes from,
I didn't participate in the online survey, though, Ms.
Oh.
Kyer, because I don't have children in the district, but I like that plan.
okay. You were a spectator, okay. Anybody else? Any input? Okay. Moving on to the last discussion item, Board Policy DED Local, Compensation and Benefits, Vacation and Holidays. Dr. Haynes.
Yes, Madam Chair, this was presented as an information item last month, and there was discussion to come back with some options to look at. This is in regard to the request from some employees to revisit our policy DED, local compensation and benefits, back in June. So as a result of the review, as a result of your direction, we have prepared some options for you to look at. And if you will look under administrative consideration, in the board item, it's the third and the fourth bullets that we're focusing on tonight at your request. Under the current policy, option 1, and that's in the attached page right behind this, the total amount of vacation days is 30, and that includes all the carryover days and days earned in current year. And what this means is this is current policy as was approved by the board in June of 2011. To address the issue in honoring our longevity for some of our employees, the fourth bullet provides you an option to consider that the total amount of vacation days is 35, which includes the carryover days and days earned in the current year. So that shows, or at least illustrates, those 5 additional days that was asked from some employees for your consideration. So if you look at your chart on the next page, you see what your options are. And Sam did a great job in outlining this, I think, in a way that it would be clear for everyone to see what your options are. So even though it says policy option 1, this is current policy as is. And everything that's been redlined has cleaned up the policy to reflect the transition from the payout that we conducted in the summer of 2011 to where we are now. So that needed to be done regardless if we change policy or not. Option 2 reflects that consideration of the additional 5 days with employees that have accumulated in this district 15 or more years of service or employment in this district.
Oh, this one sentence on page 71, last paragraph, is getting me.
Are you in the policy?
Option 2, under accumulation, availability, and use. I thought we were going to not use accumulation, but this paragraph starts, the district shall not approve use of vacation days for more work days than have been accumulated in prior years, plus those to be earned during the current year. That's just a bad sentence. I mean, I see where it is, he agrees it's a bad sentence, because then he defines it. Therefore, no employee shall have more than 30 or 35 for those employees earning 15 per year vacation days available for use at any time.
We can go back and work on that.
All right, Sam.
We can make that clear. This, now, and I'm glad you pointed that out, this has this has been under review by the TASB people. So their language and how they structure things are a little bit different than how we would. So we can work on that to make it clear.
So This, though, is making an amendment to the policy to allow for additional vacation days for employees over 15 years, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, but I thought, at least one of the things that I was interested in looking at, because when I asked the question last month, it was how many employees were over that point, and I had written down, like, we had 19 to 20 people that we in essence said, we're now taking that away from you. I guess my intent was not necessarily to change the policy to allow for additional days. I mean, I think that the intent of that policy was smart and it made sense. I think the problem I had was, you know, you grandfather people who are already there. So, I mean, here we have that there are 120 employees. Is that the number we're looking at? Somebody had given me 19 to 20 people last month.
If you look on the second page, it says there, right below the chart, there are 409 employees who qualify for a vacation. Of these, approximately 120 employees will have 15 years of continuous service. I think, from what I can remember on the numbers, there was about that many who actually had not used their vacation days. And I would be an example of one of those 19 people.
I think those were the maintenance people, because
yes.
the Paul, it
Yes,
was.
originally.
Yeah, it was about that group of workers in the maintenance department, not all 12-month employees. And what I think we all agreed on was that we were not going to create a separate class of people. So this 120 is everybody that is 12-month employees that would qualify for this.
Thank you.
My thought on that is that if we have somebody that's given us 15 years of good and faithful service, that just adding another week of vacation is a small price to pay to say thank you for all your time and dedication and what they've done for the district.
Any other comments, discussion, questions? All right, moving on to action items. Consider approval of independent financial audit for fiscal year 2012. I need a motion, please. Motion, Ms. Duke. Second, Ms. Foudy. Any discussion?
We do have representatives from our auditors here, and Becky Buck, our Executive Director of Finance. If you would like to hear from them, they are ready to give you a very brief presentation. Emphasis on the brief.
I think they should at least be able to walk up to the microphone, given the fact they've sat here all evening. Plus, it's a pretty good little report to have to give.
I would like to introduce Chuck Yapel and Randy Gregg, both the partners with Whitley Penn, and they are here tonight to briefly to go over our audited financials for the year ending August 2012.
Thank you, Becky. We're certainly happy to be here this evening. We'll start by turning to page II. No, I'm teasing. One of the things that is a bit different about what your CPA auditors do is that they decide what they'll do, and they'll tell you what their report looks like, and it's a bit simpler. I would say that we have completed the audit for the fiscal year ended August 31st, 2012, and based on that audit, the financial statements are fairly presented. The opinion on the financial statements is the highest form of assurance we can give as a result of the work we do. In addition to that, there are two other reports under federal guidelines in the back. There are a couple of findings there, one having to do with the current fight going on between school districts and the education agency over the maintenance of effort reduction for your special ed spending on the local level. You are one of many districts that had this particular situation, and it is ongoing, I understand. Also, there was a computer glitch on PEAMS that was picked up with respect to these items. That said, it's a very good audit. I commend the district, certainly the Board of Trustees, the superintendent, executive staff, certainly Becky and her staff, Teresa and those that are so involved with this and do such a fine job, to be honest, in keeping the finances straight for the district. And with that, I would open up for questions.
Anybody have any questions? Latham? I want to say on page 85. No. Paragraph 3. I'm just kidding. Okay. I really don't have any questions. I think it's a great report. I really appreciate all your hard work. And, of course, Becky, you know, God bless you, honey.
It's 105 pages, and it's all generated internally with the exception of our three reports that are included. So I think it's commendable.
Great flow chart. I mean, would you like to speak to it, Dr. Waddell?
No, it's, I don't.
Okay. That was easy. Okay, I guess we have a motion by Ms. Duke, a second by Ms. Foudy. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ms. Foudy. Moving on to action item number 2, resignation incentive. I need a motion, please. Motion, Ms. Latham. Second, Ms. Sheffield.
I have a quick question.
Would you want to add? Do you want to let them talk about it first, real quick?
No,
Okay. Question.
It's a simple question. Do we have a target number that we're trying to reach with these incentives? So I get, how long are we going to keep offering these? Haven't we reached our target number by now?
Here's Brenda.
Currently, we have 200 on our target participation for this school year. I don't know what the ultimate target is.
That's my question. Is there an ultimate target?
I think, yeah, that larger question is, we're still dealing with the shortfall from the state. So, you know, this is not something we're going to just keep doing year after year, but we're still believe this is something that will benefit us substantially. It's one of those painless ways that we can make a big impact on the budget. And so, you know, I can't say whether we'll do it, that this is the last year, we'll do it another year, 2 years. Obviously, we're not going to do it very much longer, but we're still dealing with a huge reduction in our budget from the state, and this is a way that we can make an impact on it, probably one of the most significant ways we can make an impact on it until things stabilize. But obviously, it's worked for us, and we see it. We think it's important for this year. There's a possibility we'll be coming back again next year. I think after a year or two, we've pretty much reached our limit on this.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Seeing none, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Ms. Latham, Ms. Foudy, Ms. Sheffield, Ms. Kyer, and Ms. Duke are in favor, and those opposed? Mr. McDaniel. Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to the consent items. Are there any consent items that any of the board members wish to pull off for individual consideration? Could I have a motion, please? Motion, Ms. Duke. Second, Ms. Foudy, to accept the consent agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? That is unanimous. And if there is no further business, this meeting is adjourned. The time is 10:02. I wish you all a happy holiday, a Merry Christmas, and a safe New Year, and Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all the other ones. Just like to cover them.
Hey, guys, great job. Thanks for the team support. I needed it.